Okay. Yeah. Peter, I'd be surprised if our computers work through this whole episode, as they might not be Y2K compliant.
Oh, that's good. Very good. More on that shortly.
I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
And we are traveling back in time via Joshua Redman and his fabulous quartet to the year 2000.
In the year 2000. Remember that Conan bit in the year 2000?
Yeah,
no, are you
of
too
course.
young for that?
No, I'm too old for it. I'm right at the sweet spot.
Today's episode is brought to you by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for your jazz lesson needs, Peter.
Yeah, man.
It's another What Makes This Album Great. It's perhaps the first great album of the 21st century.
And it's also perhaps the first album of the 21st century.
Released April 20... I almost said 2020. Released April 2000.
Yeah. That was a while ago now.
A long time ago. This is Joshua Redman. This is Aaron Goldberg on piano.
For some of our younger listeners and viewers, perhaps, and maybe some of our older ones that don't remember Y2K, give us a little refresh on what that was about.
Of
and what
Y2K?
Yeah. Why was that a scary time?
So, okay, a couple things. It stands
Paint
for...
a picture.
It stands for Y'all 2000?
No, it doesn't.
Right? No, the year 2000. Stands for year 2000. There was some concern that computers had been built, and I'm like, this is something that my kids would not know about, that computers would have been built with years as just two numbers.
Right.
84, 89, 96, 99, 00, right. And that some computers would take things like banking records or other things. I'm totally messing this up. Someone who's a computer
It would basically
literate,
be like as soon as we hit midnight going into 2000, does not compute.
And
and the whole structure is going to fall apart.
Everything would fail because it would think it was 100 years earlier all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I do think, though, there was some work that people did to
There was a lot of work.
make sure that if you did some work on computers in the years leading up to 2000, please put it in the comments what actually happened.
Right.
Or did you have to do work on computers? Or was that a big nothing donut? Let us know.
Nothing burger.
Nothing burger. Nothing salad.
Sorry, I put you on the spot to explain
Also,
that
you
phenomenon.
completely interrupted me introducing the band. Thanks for that. Aaron Goldberg on piano, Ruben Rogers on the bass, Gregory Hutchinson on the drums.
Well, I thought we'd get into that as we get into the album, but that's good.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was trying to bury the lead. You're leading with the lead.
I was just in the middle of introducing this great band.
It's all good.
We've listened to this album during the pandemic, I think, in one of our listening sessions.
Yes.
We've talked about it before. It's been an influential album for us. Peter, it was for me because I was a kid, or I was a teenager. You, however, were in the previous version of this band. So this happened after your tenure in Joshua Redman's band.
It was a few years later. I guess there was kind of an interim band. I don't remember the exact timing, but with Sam Yahel on organ. Was that after this or before
After this, yeah.
Oh, that was after this.
That was after this, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I guess this was...
I think. I know that...
No, you're right. You're right.
That they made that, what was it? Elastic stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
But Timeless Tales was before this, actually. And
that's
that was...
Brad Meldo, right?
That's Brad Meldo. So that kind of went... So when I came in, it was after the Brad Meldo... Brian Blade. Well, Brian Blade stayed over. Mm-hmm. Christian McBride and Brad left the band. And then I came in, I want to say 95, but it might have been 94. And in 94, for the next 3-4 years, Brian Blade, Chris Thomas, Peter Martin, Joshua Redman. That was the quartet. And then Peter Bernstein came in 96 or so, and it became a quintet. Fun fact.
That was a great band.
Yeah. But then this was sort of the next band, but he did kind of go back and do a record, at least one record with Brad Meldau, Larry Grenadier on bass, and Brian Blade, which is a really cool record. But
Timeless Tales record?
Timeless Tales, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
But this record we're listening to today, Beyond, I love this record. I think it's such a, I'm a big Joshua Redman fan, even before I played with him and after still, and he's a good friend. He's one of my favorite musicians and just people on the scene. I kind of came up with him. We're about the same age. I think he's, it's been fun for me because I've sort of seen him at different stages. When I first met him, it was kind of before he really blew up. He actually came down to New Orleans when I was down there the first time. Me and Brian and Chris played with him was with Delphio Marsalis, fun fact. And I guess Delphio knew him from Boston at Berkeley or something. I can't remember. Mark Turner was down around the same time. Delphio was kind of a connector back in those days a little bit.
Yeah.
I might be screwing up the dates and the people. No, I think it was
a while ago.
Yeah, early 90s. But then, Joshua really took off after he won the Thelonious Monk jazz competition. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but the Monk competition, right? Yeah. And I believe that was the first time it was for saxophone. And he did a record called Wish, which is on Warner Brothers. He got this big record deal with Warner Brothers.
This album, Beyond, is still on Warner Brothers.
Right. Yeah, no, he was on there for a while and after this.
Yeah.
Made a bunch of records, and this was sort of in the heyday of the Young Lions thing. And you had Columbia Records, then you had Warner Brothers kind of coming in strong. And then there was Verve. Like, those were kind of the big labels, really making interesting records with great musicians and really giving the artists a lot of resources and sort of resources for them to do what their vision was. And I always thought Josh was great, and on this particular record in particular, at sort of coming up with a musical concept, and putting personnel together, and what really became one of his great bands, his sort of next great band, I would say.
This was a great band.
Yeah. But then,
did they make anything? Was the Passage of Time with the same band?
Passage of Time, I believe so. Yeah, was right after
same
this.
Group. That's
yeah.
Right.
But I mean, the point is, like, this record Beyond is all originals, and so, like, it's a little bit. It's not necessarily a risky thing, but I'm sure it came up at some point with Warner Brothers. Was like, hey, you want to play Stardust? You want to do a little bit of Summertime? And I think there is a little bit of Summertime snuck in there. But this is, I believe, it's entirely originals, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing that you put on and say, oh, this is a jazz hands kind of record. It's sort of the opposite of that. But I would say that this is also a very successful record and a great entry point into the world of Joshua Redman, in a way. I mean, the other thing is, like, he doesn't really, this became a great group with Aaron and Ruben and Gregory, but it wasn't at this time. Like, I mean, this was like one of the first things they did was record this record, I believe. I know they had played together some, whatever, but the band developed as the years after this. And even with this material, I know Greg Hutchinson has told me, like, and Ruben and Aaron, it was like they weren't really comfortable with this material. And it's very tricky, some of the music that Josh wrote. But I think they're just killing it. And I love, like, their kind of, it's almost like an innocent approach to this music, as opposed to, yes, I heard them play a lot of these tunes years later where they're just totally mastering it. And here, there's a little bit of sort of exploratory of a feel to it. And I just want to play again that beginning. And I think the way this record comes in, I don't know if we have a category for how the record starts.
Well, let's talk about the categories real quick. So we have 10 categories to rate this album. Each one is worth 10 points. We've got number 1, playing; number 2, vibe; number 3, compositions; number 4, sound; number 5, sequence, which I think is
okay. So that would fall into that.
Number 6, cover art; number 7, title; number 8, lore; number 9, snobometer, which is a combination of would Aunt Linda like the album, or would Ethan Iverson like the album? And then number 10, is it better than Kind of Blue?
Right.
So those are our 10 categories.
Okay, cool. So let me just play a little bit of the beginning. I know I'm going to jump around a little bit, but...
Okay, stop.
What a way to start a record.
You're usually the one to do that. But to me, this passage is a perfect start to the record because it signifies a couple of themes that are going to happen, which is the bass and piano left hand unisons, which are all over this record.
Right.
And I was super influential on me. In fact, I have an example of stuff that I wrote.
Can I just play another quick example?
Yeah.
This is the second tune, Belonging, Lopsided Lullaby.
Not that this hadn't been done before, but this is definitely like a sound of this album mixed with the mixed meter, right? So we have some odd meter stuff.
Right. Those are kind of the two big themes.
The hallmarks of this album and what made it so vibey. I saw this band tour with this in 2000 here at Jazz St. Louis, and I was so influenced by it. It really kind of made me decide to move to New York. It made me decide to go to the New School and study with Aaron Goldberg, who's playing piano on here. And
well, we could say what makes this album great? Made Adam move to New York. That's one
kind
thing.
Of, yeah, kind of.
But that's big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the way Black Coats for the Underground for me was like,
so
this is why I want to do this.
And seeing Ruben and Hutch up close do this stuff's crazy.
So I was just going to say, you know, what you pointed out there with the piano left hand in unison, not in octaves with the bass, like that had been done before, obviously, for years. Yeah. And Joshua had used that. Like, that's a kind of hallmark of the way he likes to write and compose. But I would say that, yes, it's such a an instructive thing for us to see how this album is constructed when you place that at the beginning of the first 2 songs.
Yeah.
So here we go. And I think for most people, they'd be like, oh, that's great bass player. Who's that? Reuben Rogers. You almost don't, you clearly hear the piano, but it's a bass line.
It's pretty tight. And the songs, the tunes themselves are actually pretty simple, which makes it really, for me, keep playing it. Okay. It makes it really that much better.
Right. And let's talk about this meter, because we were trying to, 1, 2, 3.
It's in 7 and then in 6, right?
Yeah, 1, 2. So it's a 13?
Yeah.
And I love this here. We got all that E flat. B to A. And one thing is, you pointed out this before, it's like, yeah, it's in 13 or it's in 7 plus 6, whatever you want to call it,
I think of that, I'm not thinking too much of like the time signature. I'm more thinking about the clave of it. And it's like they do the figure in 7 and they do the same figure in 6 or a similar figure in 6. And that's how my brain kind of... if I were to play it, that's how I'd be thinking.
No, absolutely. And so, like, for one thing, for those of you that want to learn this, is like, get 13 and 7 and 6 out of your mind and think about like, but I love what he does too. Like, there's this very, like, it's almost like we're rising from the ashes of Y2K. We survived midnight. We're in a new century with all these like sus chords, minors, majors. Like, and then when it resolves from like that, all the, obviously this is pedal point over this, it doesn't resolve to, it's, got that little sus.
Little things here.
I mean, I love Josh's writing. I don't think he gets enough credit for like all these songs. And I'm a little surprised at some of these. Well, you know what? They're hard. They're difficult, I think, but why they haven't become standards,
And didn't we
like,
talk
what's the most standardy song that Josh has written, like that people might call it a jam session?
For Joshua Redman?
Yeah.
Probably something from the Momentum Elastic era.
Okay.
The groovier stuff.
But all the stuff from the 90s, like for me, I know this is a different record.
Yeah,
but the one with,
that one for
Mood
sure.
Swing.
Mood Swings, yeah. For sure. Yeah. I could see that.
I think his compositions...
And then his vibe. I mean, people will just do a version of St. Thomas that's like his.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not his tune, but it's like...
Right. Cool. All right, so playing. Why don't we jump to...
Did we talk to Reuben about how like they didn't have a lot of rehearsal for this, right? Or did they? Did they tour with this before they recorded?
I don't think they toured with it much before this. I know. I remember Greg saying that like he wasn't totally comfortable with, because I'm always telling him, I'm like, man, I love that record. He's like, oh, I hate that record. Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, man, I wasn't. He's like, I could play that music so much better after we played it for a while.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing, because even if you check out the way that he comes in, I think is masterful. So there's a lot of great details on this record. And so I don't know where that's going to come up in this. But I always think about that for things that we want to listen to over and over again. I mean, Reuben's just killing. That's very difficult to play in tune.
Remember we had a whole listening session with this band once. Do you remember that?
Oh, did we?
We brought this band on.
Yeah.
But in the pandemic. We had like a Zoom session with them.
I'm sorry, so I missed it. I was going to say where Greg comes in, the way that he comes in, because obviously the time is there, but it's like, he's dancing, right?
Yeah. Let's listen to this whole track and listen to the solos too.
Is that no vibrato, would you say? Saul's, he's playing Saul's vibrato.
NV.
Nevada. That's the way they play out there, right? Ooh, that little snare Greg did.
And listen to how Aaron Goldberg's putting chords in, but they're way underneath. Just letting that bass line shine. Because the bass line's outlining the harmony with the melody. Those two things.
I mean, the bass line is the primary melody. It's like Josh is playing the counter melody, kind of. in terms of activity.
And again, the meter here is.
And Greg goes to that other cymbal. Masterful. Top of the form.
Oh, that chord there.
Yeah. And then, Great mix. Shout out James Farber, engineer on this record. And Ruben's really, in the rhythm section, is driving this right now. Greg is more like dancing around, which is a cool kind of juxtaposition. Dancing.
I think Aaron underrated. Aaron is underrated in his generation.
Like, no, I'm saying just the rhythm section being bass and drums.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I'm saying the piano playing through all this record is, and this his whole career. But yeah.
Yeah, Ruben's really like holding it down nicely. I love what Aaron does there. Jumps back in.
And then there's just like nothing better or more undeniable than Hutch.
Right.
He is a force.
Yeah, absolutely. But he hasn't really gone in there yet.
No, but that's his thing, though.
I know.
Him and Blade do this thing where you don't even know they're doing it.
I know.
They're bringing
it up on you.
Man.
I mean, it's really coming out of like that Elvin Jones, like, macro approach to the whole thing, you know? Like how you can control the trajectory of the whole tune. Woo!
The handoff here.
Oh, it's fantastic. Woo! Woo!
Man, I remember seeing, when I saw this band live, it was my first time seeing Aaron Goldberg live.
Yep.
And remember watching him solo and thinking like, oh, I think I can do that.
Right.
And then, because it's deceptively simple what he's doing.
Right.
It's so thematic and so, it's so like composed almost, even though of course it's improvised, but it feels so organic.
He's making it seem easy.
He makes it seem easy. And it's not.
Right.
Turns out it's not easy.
And the way he construct like all that's like kind of tenor region where he started kind of alto-y tenor region, no comping, and then when he brought in the first comping, and then now, so great. You know, very Kenny Kirkland inspired Herbie, of course, but really it sounds like Aaron. Sorry, let me get. And I think this is part of the composition, like coming in there at the bridge kind of section and back to the bass line. It's a great tune. Woo!
Man.
Little alteration on the melody. That's so great. Details. Josh is great details within the composition. I love that they left all this extended part in.
That's some good playing, man. So I have a 9. I got a 9 for the playing. What do you got?
Let me just play this. I'm actually not fading. This is the fade on the record, which I forgot. Check this out. This is the transition as recorded. I just wanted you to hear that because that's going to come up in some of our things. I think like sequencing and the transition and that fade. I totally forgot about that fade on there. I've got 9 for playing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could go 10. I could, but if everything's a 10, nothing is a 10. I don't know. I mean, it's incredible
pretty high
play,
level. It's pretty high
but
level.
I have to go 9 because I don't know that there's anybody except Josh, maybe, that I would say this is their greatest playing I've ever heard them do because I've heard them live so much. Like I've heard Aaron, he's killing on this record, but I've heard him go next level a little bit from this. Part of it's the constraints of how the records were made at this time. I remember this.
Yeah.
And they were fair. I mean, I wouldn't say they were highly produced, but more produced than just a gig or like them playing this music, which I think is part of the charm of it and the sound. I mean, it's part of the vibe of it. You know what I mean? Like there was edits on this for sure. And like what Greg is playing, Greg Hutchinson at the end there, and what Josh is playing is some of the greatest playing between them I've heard, but they're not cutting loose 100%. You know what I mean? And I think that gives, which is great because you can't cut loose all the time.
There's something about the energy of that is very helpful for this album.
Yes, yeah. And there's a little bit like I can feel Greg, like I know, as surprising as it sounds, he was not 100% comfortable with that
It's
groove,
almost great,
which is crazy
when a master like that is like a little bit off.
You can't really, but that adds to the excitement. So, but it was great as he developed with the music too. So for me, it's when the playing's a 9.
Let's check out the next track, Belonging,
Okay.
Lopsided Lullaby. Nine eight.
I think so. Yeah.
One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3,
5,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
It's 4.5.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 2. And it's an interesting clave, right?
You can hear Ruben's kind of outlining it.
Interesting clave. So it's like the 3 is in the middle. So there's like the dotted eighths in the middle.
Right. This is some of Ruben's best recorded stuff around this period.
1, 2, 2, that's the clave. All these little jabby phrases Aaron plays, man.
Aaron's so great at holding back on confident with the left hand. He hasn't played anything in the left hand yet, right? Woo!
Come on now.
Ah, there he is. That cymbal sound is one of the best ever recorded of Greg.
Hey. A little two-handedness happening here.
And Aaron's getting over the bar lines really nicely already. Woo. Benny Green in a funhouse mirror.
Yeah, shout out to Reuben Rogers holding it down.
Woo. He jumped up in that phrase.
Dang.
Ha.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of people started to try to play like this after this record. I just remember that. Younger players. Ha.
Yeah, James Farber, man. Dude.
Yeah, he killed it. He mastered, he defined this period.
See, I like this version of Joshua Redman the most, I think. I think this is my favorite.
I agree. It's like such an integrated approach to all that he brings to the table, you know. We'll talk about that.
Oh!
That was strong. That was a strong ending right there. Go ahead.
Wow.
And that's really part of the composition.
I would say, yeah.
You know,
so we got vibe and compositions coming up next. I've got 9 for vibe.
I do too. I got 9 for vibe.
I've got 8 for compositions.
Ooh, I got 9. And I almost have 10.
It's close. It's a 8.5 for me.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 8.5 for composition.
I'm going to tell you my thought process, and then I want to hear yours on composition. So I'm taking into account a lot things like how he ended that, like because that's part of the composition process.
Yeah, it is.
And then the way these tunes are, like when you have the trading, when you have the vamp, when you have just going to the souls, like the construction of them is very intentional, and I think works brilliantly. And a lot of that stuff could be chalked up to like, oh, that was in the moment, and probably not. Actually, I know not on this record. Like that was decided upon. When you do it live, of course, you get the energy of the room and all these different things, so it's a different thing. But I think the template that he laid out, and I'm sure there was a lot of contributions from Aaron and from Reuben and Greg, like all great band leaders, Josh is very great about pulling those different elements in. So it's very much a group effort. But I just think that the way these compositions come together, as compositions, if you take them up and just make a corny lead sheet and play them, would you give it a 9 or 10? Maybe not. But like, because they're placed and they take advantage of the improvisation and the possibilities of the players so well, I have to include that as part of composition.
Also,
and having played with Josh, like I can tell you, he's overlooked as a composer, I think, too much because his melodies are very simple.
Yeah.
Obviously, he went crazy with the time signatures and the bass lines in this. So, but the way he can juxtapose those together, I don't think it's been done any better.
And there's also, we have a little bit of hindsight blinders with this because so many modern jazz musicians write music that sounds a lot like this.
Right.
And there wasn't as much before this. Not that he invented this style of composition and these little things, but he put it together in a way that has kind of been ripped off by a lot of people. And I mean, in a way that it's natural.
Yeah.
So I do think it's like, if you could experience this the way we did in 2000, where it's like, oh, this is kind of different, actually. This is a little bit, because this wasn't happening as much in the 90s, this kind of vibe.
Right.
On this kind of level, particularly. Like, not for Warner Brothers. You know what I'm saying?
But I also feel like Mood Swing, for sure, and maybe some of the records after that Josh did. But like, if you look at sort of Mood Swing and then leading to this, I think this is kind of the end result of some things that he was working on with that compositionally. And like what we were just saying, like in terms of playing, this may be Josh's, I wouldn't say strongest playing, because I think right now he's, but like you kind of said, this is this might be my favorite
version
recording. Yeah. And I like a lot of different things that he's done, but it's such a, like, it highlights so many things that he does well together in an integrated way, like going up and doing all the high stuff. Like, it's, I don't know, just the way he does this, because it's so free and it's so well tailored to the way that he likes to trade and play and sounds great on, and going through all the different registers, where at different times he would highlight being able to jump from the, you know, like do, 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 which is great. And that's one of the most imitated and admired thing by saxophone players, for sure. And crowds, I mean, they love that, and it's a really cool thing. But like his ability to run through the registers that, I mean, you know, Sonny Rollins, that's the only other saxophonist that comes to mind. I mean, Train for sure, of course, but
not in the way that Josh.
All right, Josh, Venmo me for some money. I just put you with Sonny Rollins and John Cole.
That's right.
Above John Cole, but I'm just saying like that he just has this great ability, and on this kind of playing, I think is showcased in a way that I haven't heard on other records.
Can I show you one of the influences?
Yes.
Influenced a very young Adam Manis.
Oh.
Just about a year after I heard this album, I started writing a lot of things that sounded like this. This is an arrangement I did of Paul Simon's Graceland. I originally did it for like
this is the third track on Beyond, right?
No,
it
sounds like I originally did it for a saxophone quartet, but it made its way onto an Aaron Bodie record on Max Jazz.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great one. Classic.
Well, listen to what I do.
Shining like a national guitar.
Straight off Beyond.
Yeah.
I am following the river down.
But you got your own vibe on it too, which is nice.
Aaron sounds so good.
Who's
too.
on bass?
I'm going to Graceland.
On this, this is Sid Broadway.
Okay. I'm going to Graceland.
Chill it out a little bit, but yeah, that's sort of like piano, bass, left hand thing. We're doing a lot of that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. No, and that's like, you know, shout out to even at a young age for you doing that, and everybody else that like take something that you like and run with it. Yeah. You know, take that football and run with it. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. Okay, so should we move on a little bit and just talk? So we got compositions.
Yep.
Sound. I think we've heard enough now to know.
I have 10 for sound.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I love the sound more than you, but I put a 9. I don't know. Obviously, I don't. You can't get any better.
No, I think this is for this. I'm always with sound too. I'm always considering the era. I think this is the best sounding jazz record of the 21st century up until maybe even several years after this. I think this is a great sounding album. I think the drums and the piano and the saxophone and the bass all sound exquisite. I think the mix is great. I like it all.
I think that the drums are a 10, the saxophone a 10, the bass, this is some of the best bass recording.
You're super picky about the piano.
I'm picky about the piano. Yeah. I'll put the piano at a 9, so I guess, so that pulls it down for me just slightly. I'm a huge Farber fan. I worked with him. I think he's a genius. He is. I mean, he's just, the sound is incredible. The only reason I would say 9 too is that, first, can we say that 9 is very good? I feel like
Peter's got to.
It's not a B plus.
9 is not good. It's great. 9 is great.
9 is great. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, but I do compare this, because I think this is one of the greatest jazz records ever made. So with the sound, I would compare it to A Kind of Blue. I would compare it.
Yeah, it sounds
to
incredible.
Thelonious himself. It's so I mean that's what I'm saying. Is it the great? Is that if everything is the greatest sound ever, then nothing is. But I'm not arguing with you at all on the 10. That's all I'm trying to say.
Let's listen to another track.
Okay.
Let's listen to, I don't know, what do you think? Maybe, what's the third
What's
track?
the one that sounds like Summertime? I love that one. Is
Twilight
that
and Beyond, probably?
No, that's a tune we recorded, I believe, on the Vanguard. Or maybe it didn't show up on that. We had played that before. That's a great tune too. Great composition. I think it's this one. Stoic Revolutions.
Oh yeah, Stoic Revolution.
Tell me if you hear a little Summertime in this. Maybe this is a known story that. Summertime and the living is easy. Living is easy. Sorry, I don't know.
It's a little summertime.
Living is easy.
Well, especially when you sing it.
D flat minor, buddy.
Sorry, I'm reading it.
Summertime and the living is easy. Summertime, cotton is high. Sorry.
Listen to those drums, man.
Oh, it's great. All right, yeah, boring. Great playing, great interaction,
Everything's
incredible
so
sound.
great. Yeah. What is it about? You've worked with him your whole life practically. What is it about Hutch? What sets him apart from like your other? I mean, there's so many great drummers, but like, there's some extra thing he has. Is he just a jerk personally? Like, I know I've spent plenty of time with him. I know he's not, but like, what is it that makes him him?
Is that the $1 million question? Who knows? So I think, I mean, it's always a combination of things, but I'll try to find what is the unique thing that you could best define. It's probably just his attention to detail, which is the most boring part of the whole thing. I mean, he's got like this huge personality. He's got a lot of charisma. And is that natural? Is that developed? You know, I mean, I knew his mother. I knew his father a little bit. Like, he's from a really cool family. Great.
He seems to have a ton of charisma and confidence with it.
And confidence, right. And so that's, you know, you're born with it, you develop it, whatever. And then he's able to translate that into the music. He had a really great training and just like musical IQ. You know, you can tell from a young age. And then when you learn about his background. But I think it's the attention to detail. Like, he's so dedicated to like understanding everything that's going on and listening and like being in the moment, but being prepared. So like it's weird because when you hear him play, you're just like, oh my God, his talent is off the chart. So that can kind of obscure some of the other parts. And it is. I mean, he's super talented. He knows, I mean, there's stuff that drummers just like, I've seen incredible drummers, like world-class drummers, jaws drop when they see him do technical things that I don't even understand and don't appreciate as much. But, you know, in terms of doing, you know, certain single press, like he's got the chops, obviously, and is known as a master technician. But I think that in terms of like the music, how he plays with others, how he brings out the best, how fun it is to play with him, there's just this great like combination of like I've got you, I'm supporting you, and come on now. Let's go to the next level.
He has
There's
that
challenging
weird balance of it's a challenge. It's a loving challenge.
It's a loving challenge.
Like there's a lot of love and support, but also, you know, you got to come with it.
Exactly.
Too.
It's like he rises. He makes all the boats rise up with him. You know,
Ruben too. Ruben is also, I think, one of the. It's not like he's got this huge, big personality. He's just got this like presence, this warm presence about him, personally and professionally, that I've seen him in a few different situations working, doing courses with us, obviously.
Yeah.
By the way, both Gregory Hutchinson and Ruben Rogers have open studio courses.
That's right.
In case you didn't know.
That's right. Joshua Redman and Aaron Goldberg. I will be texting them shortly after this.
Come on, Josh and Aaron, get on the get on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
No, but I think Ruben it's different than Hutch. He's certainly confident, but it's like this real warmth that he's got personally and what I've seen on the bandstand.
Yeah.
But the combination of those two as well,
yeah,
I think is pretty incredible.
It's amazing. And I think a lot of people would be like, they complement each other really well. Like when Greg's ready to go off, like Ruben just instinctually like, you know, goes to what's needed and vice versa. There's all that's there. But I mean, it gives them a little bit short shift if we say, oh, they're only great when they're together. Because you can look at so many great examples with other bassists and other drummers, like where they pair up with others. Yeah. So they're definitely like both bringing something. But I think the thing that they have in common that's very exciting to play with them as a rhythm section is that they both care about the music so much. Like when you're in the studio with them, they're like producers, both of them.
Yeah.
Like they bring ideas and they'll be like, I don't know about, like, that's why I'm sure on this record they had a lot of input, even though Joshua Redman comes more prepared as a leader to a session than I think anyone I've ever worked for, which some people take it as like calculating. And I'm like,
forget he went to Harvard, so he did go to Harvard. Of those kind of kids.
He's prepared. Yeah. But I mean, prepared in all the right ways, you know. But he's also open to like the details. So you get players like Aaron is like this very much as well. Aaron Goldberg, in terms of like how he comps. I don't know how much he's like actively adding, but he probably is actively adding ideas as well. But it's just to say that like when you get musicians together, they care, and then you got a band leader that comes in with this really interesting music. It's kind of like set up to have some fireworks like this happening. That's why it's always funny to be like, well, Greg, it's like I could give you 9 other records where he sounds just as good. So why would I say that this is like his greatest? I don't know. You know, I mean, I've heard him live just go crazy and stuff, but I think the sound being so great, the tunes being very interesting, and really in his wheelhouse in terms of what he can really bring his charisma to everybody in the band. And that's a part of like composing, I think. And that's why like for Josh, I think that he brings like maybe these tunes are less jam session-y, which is fine, and more like bespoke for this particular group of musicians here. And that's all good. I mean, that's the Duke Ellington playbook, right? Yeah. It's like, you can take this arrangement, but he's writing them for these individuals. So
I love this too. Can you talk a little bit about, so we've mentioned it a couple of times, this is on Warner Brothers, which seems like an absurd statement.
Yeah.
That a quartet album, instrumental jazz quartet album of
all original
compositions in odd meters would be on Warner Brothers Records.
Yeah.
It was recorded at Avatar in New York City, which is
Power Station.
An incredible space.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, everything kind of cost a lot and came together, and it was worthwhile.
But you were making records in the 90s. This was recorded in the late 90s. Like, what's the biggest difference? Obviously, that someone else is paying for all the records.
Yeah.
And now everybody's paying for their own records, essentially. Even if you are on a label, you're essentially making the record and then giving it to the label.
Well, I think it was, like, in a lot of ways, everything's easier now, or should be easier, and there's more possibilities. But I think for this kind of a record, it was a really kind of a important time and everything lined up. Like, so if you want to, like, and what's different about it is you had 3 days in the studio, 4 days in the studio,
right?
You know, which you could do now because you could have your own home studio. You can sit and make everything and have unlimited time. But like, you need some constraints. But what the 1 day sessions, which we did at this time too, which are great. But you can't make a record like this in 1 day. You just can't. Unless,
I wonder how many days they worked on this. Doesn't say here.
I'm sure it was 3 or 4. I mean, I know when we did Freedom of the Groove, that was,
Yeah.
it was more than one day. You know, if you're doing a jazz record, it's either one day or it's forever.
Yeah.
Anything more than a day is like, what?
Yeah.
You know?
One of those Aaron Bodie records we did at Avatar, we did 3 days, 2 days, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, 2 days is more than 2x what 1 day is. It's
We
like,
did 3 days.
you know, to be able to like decompress and then come back, and like edits and stuff were harder, but you could test them out. And so like having that budget and that time, and mainly just having the space with a great instrument. I mean, Steinway, you'd be able to pick out your piano, they'd bring it in, and then a great engineer, and they're tuning the piano, and you're eating, you know, relatively good carry-out food. It wasn't very good, but I mean, like, just you could concentrate, and nobody had phones, so I mean, you might have I don't think we had cell phones in 2000, maybe not.
Baby cell phones.
Baby cell phones, yeah. But I mean, it was just like,
Did you
it was
have a pager?
Focus. I did have a pager before this time. Sky pager.
Multiple pagers. I had multiple pagers.
I was a drug dealer, so I needed it.
No. Explain to the kids what a pager would do. Like,
Really?
why would
Is
you
that
need
germane to this record?
It doesn't matter. It's
I do have a
germane to
plane to catch.
1999.
I do have a plane to catch. Just a reminder. Sorry, why you look so hurt,
should we
man?
go?
No, we're cool. I just don't know. Oh, no, a pager. It's a little thing that, Google it, kids. AI it. Chat GPT.
People would page you, and you'd have to call them back.
Right, which would happen, even when you're in the studio. So, okay, what do you have, Adam, for our next? We need to move this along, my friend. We don't need to rush through it, but for sequence, I'm interested to see what
I have an 8 for sequence.
Okay, I have an 8.
Yeah.
Give me your rationale.
Well, I think so with sequence, and this was my thing with compositions too, which you said you wanted to hear my opinion, and then you never got back to me because
Sorry,
I think you weren't actually interested.
I do want to hear it, just not on this episode. Not today.
Anyway, I had a couple pagers. I had one that was like, no,
I
soda
feel
pop
bad. Now,
color.
tell me about why you said 8 for compositions.
Okay, so I said 8.5 for compositions, and this kind of has to do with sequence as well. My only gripe with this album as a whole is that it's a little too much of the same color through the whole way.
Okay.
With the compositions, and I think with the sequence that could have helped with this a little bit. I love the sequence, but 8 is like very good for me, not great.
Yeah.
And then what do you have for cover art, dude? Do you have anything?
Oh, I thought you wanted to hear what I had to say about sequence.
I don't. No,
So
what do you
I
have?
had
What do
8.
you-
Well, I'm wondering though if you're saying like vibe with everything being similar, does that push the vibe up though?
The vibe is 9. The vibe is strong.
Okay.
And it does kind of push the vibe up. But I do need some more variety than what we got.
Yeah, I got you. I'm wondering if the fact that this record is long AF maybe pulls it
72
back.
minutes. It's longer than this
77
episode.
minutes, isn't it?
Longer than this episode. It's
Yeah.
just long AF.
We're getting there. It's 73 minutes. But I mean, so to me, that pulls back a little on the sequence.
They could have taken some stuff out probably.
Yeah. There's nothing like why is that there? I actually think if I'm going to be truthful to sequence, like just to the order of things, I would actually give it a 9 or even a 10 in a way, because I think
There's some good transitions.
There's some great, but because I don't like fade outs on this kind of record. And I forgot, so I pulled down. I was gonna go 9. I pulled down to an 8 because I don't like that. And I know that's sort of a thing of the time. And I remember like on records, sort of going back and forth, like how we're gonna end it with, we're gonna fade it out.
Yeah,
and I think that was not a great. That was one of the few things of that time that was not great.
I remember when fade outs became passé.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
right. Yeah,
I like a long fade out. You don't like a long fade out? I love a long
I don't
fade
like
out.
a lot. Not for this kind of record to me. And it's a slight thing. I mean, it worked. The how they did it, Farber did it, like it was, and Josh, like was great. Like,
What is it about fade outs you don't like?
I don't like, because I want it like this kind of a record is so intimate, like in the way that the interaction and the playing, and it's so like you're there with it, and the music just never naturally fades out like that. Like the way that the second track ended, where it's like that's a natural fade out, like the way the music would actually occur in nature.
Yeah.
Like it would never be like, it's almost like the band's playing on a truck and then they just leave and like you can't really hear them. That's the only time in nature the fade out would happen like that.
As a fan of like 70s rock and R&B,
Different kind of music.
I love a fade out.
Yeah, but that's
and I love it on jazz records too. There's a lot of good records in the 60s where there's some fade outs. No? Okay.
Well, beg to differ. Cover art.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Agree to let you be wrong.
That's dynamics.
That is
Did you hear the
dynamics.
touch there?
Listen to it fading out. Natural. I like a natural fade out. I like to see what Hutch would fade, how he would just naturally fade
Yeah,
out.
that would be cool. Cover art, I have a 10. That's a 10 out of a 10. I think
Ooh.
if you look at this cover, the image is striking.
Let's look at it.
It's one singular color, this great color of green, It's a striking image of Joshua Redman in a dark suit holding a saxophone. It's very late 90s-ish. Those are sort of like the color palette of like a J-Lo record, I believe, too.
Is it the color palette of my hat?
A little bit like your hat. I think this what's that? It's got like Matrix vibes, which was
very
also
Matrix,
at the time. I think it really works for capturing, like, you can be like, oh, late 90s, early 2000s. It looks great. It's striking, memorable. Love it. 10 out of 10.
I went 8. And I'm looking at it now again. I almost would go 7. Okay, first of all, Josh, tiny head, giant feet. That's not the way he occurs in nature. Look at his little head. I mean, it's just weird. I don't know, right? And I get it. Like, I am I lying?
He looked at me and was
Caleb,
like, right? No, 10 out of 10. It's a great
tiny
image.
head. I mean, and I know that's part of the vibe. I do like the font, the different fonts, and the different, and then
Body
you got
shame
the
Joshua Redman.
No, I'm not. No, I'm saying he's not like that. But you're trying to kind of look at it at an angle. It's fine.
It's just a big suit. It's
8
the
is good.
90s, man.
And it's a big suit. Yeah. Yeah, it's
It
a
could
camera
be also
thing.
the lens of the camera. I
It's
think
fine. I like the timeless. I like timeless tales. I think that's a better.
he had
it's
a
got more
string of really
emotion.
great covers.
Yeah.
I would put
But
this
this is a vibe for sure. I do like that about it. That's why it says 8.
And also it matches the music. This sort of like empty, greenish, matrixy room.
Yeah.
I think it matches.
Title. I have an 8.
I also have an 8. I think it's very good.
Yeah. I just
I like
changed
how
it from
simple
9
it
to
is. What's that?
just before I said this, I changed it from 9 to 8.
I did the exact same thing.
Really?
Well, because I like that it's so simple and it's one word, but it's kind of boring.
That's right.
It's very good, but it's not great.
But see, I think Josh's titles are really interesting. The way he titles tunes and it's very unique.
Yeah.
And the way he titles records. But it can be boring sometimes. But I think, this matches the record so good. That's why I'm like, why am I even going down to 8? I don't know. But it's really good, and it's interesting. And I couldn't imagine anything else, which makes a great title. Lore.
I've got a 7. I could even go lower. For me, the personal lore is strong. Like I said, really inspired me as a young musician.
Does lore get any more important than you literally played something that was
I know, but it's not as far as like some of the stories we've heard on some of the albums we've listened to, the lore of this isn't as
there was no drugs at the
grand.
session. That's what you're saying.
It's like the story is like, here's a young musician who's kind of at the, starting the peak of his powers at this time. Like he's had a string of hits. And so there's not a lot of struggle going on with the lore. Right. The band sounds good. There's just from outside of my own personal connection with the album, which is strong. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other outside lore.
Yeah, I went 8 kind of partly because of that, but also I did think that it pushed up a little bit the lore. Like this is the first record of the new band. It's 2000. It's a real entry point. Like this was kind of his third, I guess, great band or not great band, whatever. Like Josh has periods based upon what bands he has, and he's very bespoke about setting those.
We are going to get people who watch this who are going to want us to listen to Spirit of the Moment, the album you're on.
If we must.
So we could do that.
But that's going to be a while.
Can you rate yourself?
We haven't.
Could you honestly?
The snobometer is going to go crazy on that one for myself. Yeah, but that's going to be a while because we haven't repeated Miles Davis or a lot of people. Like we
haven't done John Coltrane yet, so
right. Let's do 2 Josh Redmans before we even hit John Coltrane. That'll go over well.
Probably not great.
Snobometer.
So, in case you don't know, the Snobometer is a combination, 5 points each. Would someone who's not into jazz like it, and would someone who's a jazz snob like it, and then you add those scores up. I have this as a 6 on the Snobometer. I think this one gets hurt by a couple of things. I don't think my Aunt Linda likes it. It's the odd meters are too much for her.
Right.
She's not going to like that. I think she gives it like maybe a 1 or a 2. I actually might even go 5 here. I'm going to go 5 on the Snobometer. I actually think she gives it a 2. I think Ethan Iverson, who is a jazz snob, gives it like maybe a 3 because it's on Warner Brothers. It's like, it's not... Yeah. Like it's Joshua Redman, who's kind of like the golden child of the jazz moment right now, or at this time. And I think
shout out Golden Child.
I think snobs don't love it either because it's not snobby enough. Right. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, so that's similar to me. I have a 5, but I have 1 plus 4, so I've got 1 for Aunt Linda. Because I'm thinking even maybe 0.
Maybe
like this is a lot. But
other than it sounds really good.
That's right.
And Joshua Redman's handsome and so that helps.
Is he? He's got a tiny head. Apparently,
you know what I'm saying, it's a good looking. The package is good looking.
Package is good, but I think once you put it on, they would be. So I gave it a 1.
Like this would do really well in a Barnes and Noble. Like if people if you worked at a Barnes and Noble,
Borders.
If you worked at a Borders, people would be constantly coming up to you with like their Subaru keychains and being like, "What is playing right now?" I own a Subaru, so I can say that. You know what I'm saying?
You own 2 Subarus, don't you?
I do own 2 Subarus. Not ashamed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. This is a, but so 1 for Aunt Linda, and then I said 4 for the Snobs because it's not going to be a 5 because it's packaged together, but it's a really like it goes up because it's not his most popular, well-known record either. So it's like, oh, do you know this one? If you might think you like Josh Redman, but what about Beyond? You know?
I see. I think well, we came to the same conclusion. So yeah.
Ooh.
Is it better than Kind of Blue? Kind of Blue is a 9, right?
Why is our categories 9 and 10 the most confusing, the most controversial, and the ones people hate the most?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah.
Because we were running out of ideas. So we needed 10 categories.
Okay.
I'm going to put this at a 7 for Is It Better Than Kind of Blue?
But tell me again about how this works. Tell the people.
Kind of Blue is a 9.
Yeah.
And actually, we did Kind of Blue last week, and it came out to about a 91 or 2 for both of us.
Yeah.
Which checks out. So a record on our scale can be better than Kind of Blue, which I think is honest. And it can be worse than Kind of Blue. So for me, this, if it's compared to Kind of Blue, if Kind of Blue's a 9, this is at a 7.
Okay. I'll go 8 because I think this is really good. I'd almost go 9 on this.
That's
but
good.
I feel like I don't want to. This is a flawed system, by the way. And I know I was part of it.
So?
1 through 8 is not flawed. Maybe we should make it like an 80-point scale.
No. People, here's what's so great, though. People love the Snobometer. They love Is It Better or Worse Than KOB? Yeah.
Okay. I'm going 8 because I think this is a fantastic record. And I think KOB is a legendary record. So it's right up under there. Should we go total it up?
Let's total it up.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll go first. So my score is an 84.5, and my favorite track is Balance.
Nice. Okay, my total score is ashamedly, surprisingly, I'm not sure, 81.
81?
Yeah. Did I do that correctly? I guess so.
You
My
must
favorite track, Belonging, Lopsided Lullaby.
That's interesting. I thought I had lower scores than you.
Yeah.
in
How's your
general.
math there, sir?
But I
you
did
know
have
what?
some 10s when you
You had
didn't
some
have
10s.
10s. Yeah,
I
that's
can't
true.
change, though.
Yeah.
But it just shows this is an inexact science because I love the, well,
But again, so I
love this record.
No, I think we're
We're in the range.
Can I just say we're nailing it with the system because look at what
I don't like
we
this.
said.
This is a B minus.
No. It's not a B minus. Peter, we said, remember, we were talking about 8s this whole time, and we were like, this is very good. And I think this album, in my heart, I think of this as a very good album. Like, not my favorite of all time, but a very good album that I've listened to probably once every couple of years since it came out, you know?
I mean, I put this as one of my 20 favorite records. Probably.
Then that should probably be higher, bud.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just, you know what? Your little 9 and 10 are not good, so.
Oh, you're blaming it on me? Come on.
I can't remember the exacts. All good, man.
You might be right about that. We do have a lot of categories that have nothing to do with the music. The Snobometer is probably the most egregious.
But it has nothing to do with our opinion.
No, it has nothing to do with
our
what we
opinion of
think of
two really like individualistic people that don't reflect our views, our opinion of their opinion of the record.
But can I say,
perceived opinion.
is that not a hell of a lot of fun?
It is.
It's
fun.
a hell of a lot of fun.
I
Yeah,
do.
I mean, come on.
Thank you, Joshua Redman, Gregory Hutchins, Ruben Rogers, Aaron Goldberg, killing it.
Thank you, boys.
Oh, and Mark Turner. Mark Turner's on this record at some. We didn't even get into that.
Oh yeah, Mark Turner's on track 4.
Yeah, which is
Leap
such a
of
cool
Faith.
thing.
Cool.
Cool. Till next time.
You'll hear it.